Each generation made a deal with the devil to be the infamous Ghost Rider. In this circus, the star is the local daredevil father and son combo, Johnny and Barton Blaze. Young Johnny does one more crowd pleaser, but he almost slips, and his old man later gives him a scolding. His dad tells him that everything in life has a consequence, but he scoffs this off like a normal teen. Ironically, his dad smokes quite a lot. Johnny's asking if he could take Grace, the bike, out for a spin, which of course Daddy refuses. Roxanne Simpson, who's Johnny's personal simp, swings by. Stereotypically, there's the forever carving on the tree. Then Roxy breaks the news that she's being sent away to live with her mom.
I'm leaving.
Johnny comes up with a brilliant plan for them to run away together by the next day. Later at night, Johnny comes back with his daddy asleep, but then he finds a letter from the doctor saying that he has cancer. His dad wakes up and Johnny looks pale from the news, so he grabs his tools and works on one of the bikes to take his mind off of things. Enter Mephistopheles, or Mephisto for short, greets Johnny and says he enjoyed the show. Mephisto wants him to ride for him, but the hotshot refuses, so this guy pulls out the deal with the devil card, which in exchange is Johnny's father being all better. The price is his soul, however. Johnny was in disbelief, but the devil promised that by sunrise tomorrow, he'd be totally healthy. He looks at this devil's contract, grazes his thumb, and the deal is set. The next day's already here, and his dad's already looking mighty fine. Barton suggests a new stunt, jump in a helicopter.
A helicopter.
Too bad Johnny's already packed his bags and tells his dad that he wants something better than the life they already have. As painful as it is to watch his son go, Barton gives his son grace.
At least you'll have a good head start.
Barton takes the stunt alone, and he brutally fails. Johnny runs to the tent, only for his father to end in his arms. He keeps seeing apparitions of the devil, then he shows up for real.
You're no good to me, Dad.
Mephisto admits he ended Barton, and he gives Johnny some demonic power. He tells him to forget about any person he ever cherished, which later he drives by Roxanne, only to leave her in the rain. Years pass by now, and Johnny is staged at a massive motorbike jump, which in front of him are trucks, fire, and a big crowd. The stage is set, and Mr. Blaze floors it. He gracefully flies, but doesn't stick the landing. Just as his crew rush to his aid, he's asking if the bike's okay.
Yeah, bike's fine.
And just like that, the legend walks away relatively unscathed. He and his boys run up to their tour bus. Mac hears hogging the TV for some games, but he comes across probably ESPN to only find out that Johnny was gonna jump something the length of a football field. Mac was the only one who didn't know about this jump, and he's concerned about JB's recent stunts. He says there's gotta be an angel looking after him. Oh boy, if he only knew, because in some remote biker bar, here comes Blackheart. The local biker doesn't like him, so Blackheart slowly withers him away. Meanwhile, Johnny and Mac bring the bikes back to JB's place, which admittedly could use a woman's touch. Mac tries to talk to Johnny about something serious. It's about the really dangerous jump Johnny's about to do on the anniversary of Barton's passing.
This jump is nuts.
Mac's worried sick about that and the occult stuff JB's recently been reading, but he says he's just looking for a second chance. Mac makes him promise to at least take the cars out from his jump, so he agrees. Back at the bar,
I could smell your fear.
Suddenly, Gressel arrives at the party, and so does Wallow. They ask why Blackheart's here, and he's responding that he wants a contract of San Vengaza, since it was rumored to be somewhere here. The last freak to arrive is Abigor, and he's asking what they get in return. Predictably, the world. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him. It's Mephisto, and he's not too happy seeing him. He can't harm him in this realm. But Mephisto vows to send the Ghost Rider after him, and Blackheart is not afraid of his own daddy. Onward to the set of Johnny's big jump. Mac's begging one last time to tone it down, even though the crowd is going nuts. Blaze declares it's showtime and he gets crowded by a flock of reporters. Mac says he doesn't do any interviews. That's until Roxy shows up. Johnny's star and love struck as Roxy got a glow up. Roxy starts the report up professionally, but Johnny resorts to simping for her responses. Roxy really couldn't keep up with his constant goo-goo eyes.
You look really good.
And she eventually shuts him down. She definitely doesn't want to stick around for the show, so she ducks out. Johnny readies for the jump, while Mac's thrilled that he took the cars out. It's all fun and games until the stadium reveals the helicopters. JB says he's doing it for his old daddy. He's still thinking about Roxy, so without warning, he punches it and makes his way for the choppers. Everyone's suffocating on how this jump is going to turn out, but he cleanly makes it.
I told you he'd make it!
That's a world record for 300 feet of whirling dismemberment. Suddenly, he just zooms off. Stewart, Roxy's news team partner, can't stop talking about him.
Sir, can we please stop talking about Johnny Blaze already?
And look who showed up. Johnny pulls up trying to get Stewart to pull over so that he can talk to Roxy, but she doesn't want to go. He almost gets run over by a few trucks and then uses himself as a blockade so that the news van will stop. They catch up on a few things in the middle of the highway, and then Johnny goes for the Hail Mary. It works. Johnny officially scores a date.
Don't be late.
At the time of the date, Roxanne seems to be stood up, and Johnny's preparing for the date while talking to himself in the mirror. Suddenly, his hands get all red and smoky. He feels like something's going on downstairs, and he hears his name being whispered by something ominous. He finds his bike ready to ride in the middle of the road as it's revving up. Mephisto enters the scene only for Johnny to have a grudge stare at him. He says he's always keeping an eye on him, and he reveals his mission for him: destroy Blackheart. If he succeeds, Mephisto will return his soul, but Johnny still refuses. Too bad he doesn't have a choice as he begins to zoom out to the streets, causing a lot of blaze in his wake and leaving his number plate. A cop tried to tag his speed, but it was just too much. Meanwhile, the emo club arrives at the private train yard, and some lard man tries to stop him. Blackheart's asking where the graves were, since this was a former cemetery, and the fat man replies that they were moved by St. Michael's Church. Once his use has expired, he expires too. Nearby, Johnny gets thrown off his bike and he's beginning to go ablaze. His skin and flesh slowly burn off until only bones are left, turning him in to the Ghost Rider. Blackheart encounters him.
Looking for someone.
So Abigor nooses him, but he's not really alive. He gets stamped by a truck driven by Gressel. They assume he's done, but he begins serving Gressel a can of flaming chain. Gressel gets Thanos'd, and Johnny calls his sweet ride, molding it into his fiery steed. He rides off into the city. Watching a thief trying to mug someone, he holds him accountable. Literally. Get ready for a nightmarish penance stare. The thief is game-ended. At the touch of morning, the Ghost Rider screams his way back into being Johnny again. He finds himself in front of his dad's grave and in front of some old coot. He wakes up in some church and he's extremely thirsty. He goes out to find Carter Slade, the caretaker, staring at his own grave. Johnny looks for his bike, and without asking questions, Carter already answers him. Carter kinda creeps Johnny out, and as he was about to leave with his bike, Carter mentions the deal. This made Johnny stop at least. Roxy got stood up last night and is now reporting on the wreckage and victims of the emo gang and the Ghost Rider's tussle. Of course, the police chief is such a tool that he tells them all to flock off.
Piss off.
Back at the church, Carter tells JB that being the Ghost Rider is being the devil's mercenary. Whenever it's daytime, he's normal, but at nighttime, he becomes some blazing vigilante Grim Reaper. Johnny remembers the crook he seared, and Carter says that the penance stare is the Ghost Rider's greatest weapon. JB mentions Blackheart and the others, which are actually named the Hidden. Carter says that the Hidden were former angels casted out by St. Michael. JB says he's got a skedaddle. Then Carter asks why he's made the deal, to which Johnny just replies with his heartache. Onto the scene of the feds investigating the rampage. Roxy's thinking there might be a religious force involved in all of this. Johnny Blaze arrives at the scene of the crime, with Roxy interviewing the woman that was mugged last night.
His face was a skull.
Johnny confronts Roxy for standing her up, and he actually mans up and takes all of it.
That went well.
Roxy leaves, then the feds find a charred plate number. Hours later, Johnny seems to be having trouble taking in what happened to him, so he does some proper occult research, trying to take control of his Ghost Rider powers, and he manages to set his hand on fire. Suddenly, Roxy actually comes in to apologize. Is that really just what Roxy's gonna do, or no? Lip lock, which is promptly stopped by Johnny, so Roxy is left really confused. She wants to know what's really going on, and Johnny thinks that he might be crazy. He explains the whole Ghost Rider gig really poorly. You know, I don't get why these explanations never show any concrete proof. Of course, Roxy doesn't buy it, and she leaves. No idea why he didn't just set that hand on fire like earlier, but now he's under fire by the cops, and he gets bagged by them. Now he's interrogated hard, and the good cop tries his hand at it. Whatever tactic the cops use, Johnny's standing by his innocence. Apart from the road rage, the cop gives him one last chance, but he still says he's innocent. Well, the boys in blue book him for the big house. Inside the cage, Johnny gets ganged up on, but they soon witness the Ghost Rider. He takes the other guy's nice leather jacket and deems one of the prisoners innocent before leaving. At some church, Blackheart confesses his sins, while Johnny calls his trust hog to finally escape the feds. The preacher at the church suddenly gets interrogated by Blackheart about the contract. Then somewhere else, Johnny gets cornered by the feds. Good thing his hog also functions as a jet ski. Johnny makes his way to where the hidden are, so Abigor goes after him. They have a little chase going on top of a building, so the cops surround that building. The rider lassos one of the choppers until the pilot apologizes. Amazingly, he lets him go unharmed. Abigor shows up to tease him about being intangible. But the demonic flames of his chains make swift work of him. He rides downwards into the ground and causes a big entrance. He gets off his bike to try and get near Roxy, but he gets annoyed by all the bullets, so he flares them off a little. With this, he rides off into the night, but the hidden are on a close watch. Dawn arrives, and the Ghost Rider is no more. Johnny finds Carter the caretaker, and quite frankly, he doesn't know too much about his human identity. I mean, to be fair, the church there doesn't appear to have TV, so yeah.
You don't watch TV? What's the matter with you?
At the news station, the feds try to interact with Roxy. They ask where JB is, but she's not a snitch. Two cops know something's up, so they give her 6 hours just to give up some info on Blaze, or they go public with all the information they have. Back at the graves, Woody Carter tells Johnny the legend of, well, Carter Slade. He said he was a Texas Ranger with a big iron on his hip, but then he got greedy. He got jailed. The devil offered freedom. Carter accepted, and he was sent to collect all the souls. But he stole the contract at the end. Carter says that Blackheart will use anything to get what he wants, especially the people the Ghost Rider cares about. Speaking of which, Roxy sneaks up on Johnny Blaze's house, but she's instead greeted by Mac. She's asking where Johnny is, but even Mac is trying to look for him. Mac says ever since Roxy entered the picture, things have been quite off-putting for Team Blaze, so he tries to send her off. Roxy's here to stay and offers to help, so Mac says Johnny has been recently reading those weird occult books, and they both investigate. Nighttime falls, and Carter's just hanging around until he senses something's off. It's Wallow. He's out stalking the graves along with Blackheart. He smacks Carter with his own shovel, and Blackheart says he has all of his father's strengths, but none of his weaknesses. He wants the contract, so he keeps on booting Carter until his demon face comes out. Carter vows he's gonna fall, so Blackheart gives him the boot one more time. He's wondering where the rider is. Blackheart realizes it's time to move to Plan B. Use Roxy as bait. Just like that, Johnny approached Stewart, trying to look for Roxy, but she's back at his place reading his demonic books. Sadly, Mac feels the touch, and Blackheart game ends him. He goes for Roxy, but Johnny gets there just in time. The two grapple each other, and Johnny turns into the Ghost Rider. It's time for the penance stare, but Blackheart is soulless. Blackheart's so powerful, he's choking the Ghost Rider back into Johnny Blaze. Now Blackheart says JB is under new management. He makes him get the contract of San Gaza, or Roxy's soul is his. This makes JB ride all the way back to the caretaker, asking for the contract of San Gaza. Of course, the caretaker won't just give it willy-nilly. That is until Johnny threatens to dip up the entire cemetery. Well, Carter reveals where it is. It was in the handle all this time. Johnny's asking him to trust him with the contract, and Carter applauds his vigilance for actually selling his soul for the right reason, instead of doing it for greed. San Gaza is 500 miles away, so Carter calls upon his trusty steed. Once on top of that steed, he flames on, and so does the horse. It's time to ride. Soon enough, they arrive at the ghostly murky town and flame down. Carter gives him a lever-action shotgun and says that was literally his last chance to ride as the Ghost Rider. He was saving it for this one chance to show his successor the way, and he hopes to make amends on his mistakes.
Thank you, kid.
In one of the abandoned buildings, Blackheart says the rider's near, but Roxy protests that nothing can stop him. Too bad he's determined to end the legend of Ghost Rider once and for all. Outside of town, Johnny rides slowly into the murky waters. Of course, predictable silence, then jump scare. It's Wallow. He attempts to drown his bony tuchus while choking him, but the Ghost Rider flames are too hot to be drenched. This makes Wallow straight up evaporate. Johnny then gets out of the pond and rides into town. Daytime's beginning to set, and he can hear the ghostly whispers from the remains of a murky town. In the middle of the town, there's our final evil and endgame, Blackheart. He's got Roxy hostage, and he says if he turns into Ghost Rider, she bites the dust. Johnny offers the contract, but she needs to be freed. Blackheart throws her away like used diapers, and Johnny walks slowly to him. Blackheart grabs hold of the contract, but then Johnny sucker punches his pale face. He recoils and punches back, making the contract fling away from the two supernatural beings. Johnny throws a few fiery rocks before the sun rises up. so he uses the chain. Too bad Blackheart deflects it, making him change back into Johnny Blaze. He crawls away while Blackheart reads the contract, summoning the forgotten souls of the town, and Roxy is just left helpless watching the turmoil. She rushes to Johnny, but it's too late. Blackheart has consumed all the souls and evolves into the being called Legion. Turns out Johnny can still change back, but only in the shade. He tells Roxy to save herself, then he lets out a cloud of shells, only to be tossed aside by Legion. He gets a chokehold of him, but Roxy suddenly blasts him. She runs out of shells. Johnny's asking for the gun. His hand is in the shadows, and he transforms the shotgun into a demonic one, firing and splattering Legion. The souls slowly crawl back into each other. Then Legion is once again alive. Since he's filled with souls, the Ghost Rider has a ton of leverage. The penance stare.
Feel their pain.
Writes Legion off into the abyss. Roxy comes over for a comforting kiss, and the moment is ruined by Mephisto. Since he did his part of the deal, he offers to take away the power of Ghost Rider. Johnny refuses, and just like that, Mephisto is banished. Afterwards, Johnny takes Roxy to the same tree as before, but Roxy sets him free with a kiss. Johnny then sets off for the last ride for this movie. And that's it for Ghost Rider. Thanks for chilling with us, guys. If you haven't seen it, what'd you think about this hot-headed movie? Let us know in those comments below with the hashtag Cinema Recap. This was Ghost Rider by Marvel Entertainment, starring Nicolas Cage, Sam Elliott, and Eva Mendes. Until we ride at dawn, see you later.